Okay, right off the top, let's start with those anti-ICE protests erupting in cities across the country now. Protests no longer just in California. We're looking at Austin, Texas, where police deployed tear gas to disperse a group of protesters. Further north, in Dallas, officers in tactical gear faced off with demonstrators there. Video bottom left in Boston, a rally outside City Hall Plaza with signs that read "Massachusetts stands with our neighbors" in Los Angeles. And then in the Northern California community of San Francisco, at least one business decided to board things up just in case things get violent there. But here's the latest in the city at the center of it all, Los Angeles, California. 700 active duty Marines are now boots on the ground in L.A. In addition to that, the military says they will mobilize another 2,000 National Guard members to respond to protests. They are, by the way, set to join the 2,000 who are already on the ground in the city as of this moment. Now, as of Monday, the LAPD says 50 people were arrested over the weekend following those much publicized violent clashes that stretched across the 101 freeway. Meanwhile, California's Governor Gavin Newsom and President Donald Trump ramping up their feud. The president calling out Newsom and touching on the unrest in LA while taking questions from the Oval Office last hour. Here's a little bit of that.
Invoke the Insurrection Act to deal with the situation in California?
If there's an insurrection, I would certainly invoke it. We'll see. But I can tell you last night was terrible. The night before that was terrible. We have, as you've seen, it was on most of your networks, people with big, heavy hammers pounding the concrete and pounding curbs, pounding it, breaking up all, and handing these big chunks of concrete to people. And they were taking that concrete, going up on bridges and dropping it into the roof of a car. They were throwing it at our police. They were throwing it at our soldiers that are there. And we got it stopped, and we have them in custody right now. Look, if we didn't get involved, right now, Los Angeles would be burning, just like it was burning a number of months ago with all the houses that were lost. Los Angeles right now would be on fire, and we have it in great shape. And not playing around.
CBS News correspondent Elise Preston joins us now for what she's seeing there in the neighborhoods. You know, President Trump there said that some of those protesters are paid protesters. So I guess a two-part question. Is there any evidence of that? And what are you seeing on the ground at this hour in L.A.?
Well, Reed, at this hour, everything appears to be calm and peaceful. We are right outside the federal building that we staked out yesterday when we saw you last. And you can see that the streets have opened up. There's traffic that is flowing. It's a very different scene. When we spoke to you about 24 hours ago, we did see kind of police blocking off this street here, and there were some protesters who were kind of lolling around the federal building, but we do not see that today. If you go straight back behind me, you will see about 5 or 6 National Guardsmen kind of standing out front. They do have their tactical gear, but that's it. Right now, we don't see any protesters. We have seen people drive by just in the normal flow of traffic, and you might see them waving flags, but outside of that, we haven't seen a large presence of protesters. To answer your question about evidence of agitators, we can tell you that for the most part, most of the folks who have been out here have been peaceful, but it does appear that there were people over the last several days who did seem like they were more involved in agitating, or that they had more interest in agitating officers and law enforcement out here than actually protesting and demonstrating like the other people. Mayor Karen Bass has also spoken to that. She said that, you know, people who are out in the streets in pockets of LA who are looting and inciting violence, they do not care about immigrants. That is what the mayor has said. But for the most part, when you look at the sheer number of people who are demonstrating, for the most part, they have been peaceful.
Well, and I come from rural America, and so I have an ear to so many people who watch these scenes on national television in rural America, people who may not understand just how huge LA is. And so I think you really use the right terms when you say pockets of LA. This is not the entire city of Los Angeles burning or having these circumstances or situations. These are very specific areas of LA. Regardless, though, President Donald Trump knows that those people and the national audience see this, and so he is sending in 700 Marines. They arrived in LA today. We're now on day 5 of these protests. Officials are preparing for the same level of unrest this afternoon and into this evening. Do you know of any coordination on the other side to try to keep this calm as we get towards the afternoon and evening hours?
Well, I can tell you, Reed, that local and state officials are urging people to remain calm. They are saying that, this is a national audience, and if things get out of hand, that is what President Trump wants. So they're asking people to remain calm. And so last night we saw a 4th night of protest, and while there was some chaos that erupted, there were flare-ups, and we did see flashbangs and rubber bullets used. It was the most calm, I guess, relatively so, in comparison to the other nights. We did not see the stretches of tension that we saw in the first 3 nights. I can tell you that, we were here early afternoon, late evening, and police officers, it was Los Angeles police officers, not federal agents, who pushed people out of this area. They moved them about the next 2-3 blocks. And so people were kind of, they were hanging out there, they were protesting there. And so at moments, more local officers would move in and ask people to disperse. Some people did, others did not. And after a while, those that did not disperse, they were detained, they were taken into custody.
CBS News correspondent Elise Preston, thank you so much. Be safe there. We appreciate you. So let's bring in CBS News White House reporter Olivia Rinaldi. Olivia, we just heard from the president in the Oval Office. What did he say about the rules of engagement for the Marines that have been activated down there?
Reed, it's good to be with you. We did just hear from the president, who brought the pool into the Oval Office to talk about what's going on in Los Angeles. First, he was talking about FEMA and wildfire preparedness, segued that into what we're seeing on the ground in Los Angeles. He said that all he wants is safety in LA. He said that Los Angeles was, quote, under siege. He said he just wants to have a safe area. That was in response to a question about the rules of engagement for Marines on the ground. As we know, 700 Marines have now been activated to Los Angeles. We still don't know exactly what their role is going to be and what that could potentially look like. This is kind of an uncharted territory for where we are right now. Secretary Noem, who was in the Oval Office with Trump just now, said that these Marines are specifically trained for what is happening on the ground in Los Angeles. So, Reed, the question is, what are they trained for and what will they be doing on the ground? We've been asking the White House for clarity on this, specifically what we could see happening in Los Angeles if these Marines were to engage with protesters.
And for our East Coast viewers, it is only the 10 a.m. hour over on the West Coast in Los Angeles. So it's calm right now, but we will continue having our cameras trained on those hot spots, those flashpoints in Los Angeles throughout the day and the evening. But I also want to ask you about this. The president is wheels up to Fort Bragg ahead of the celebration of the Army's 250th anniversary. But there's going to be some messaging there. Take us through that.
Certainly. I mean, the president this week seems to be a little bit focused on the military, does it not? With the Marines in Los Angeles and the celebration of the 250th anniversary of the Army, the U.S. Army. So the president's been doing a lot of focus around that. He's heading to Fort Bragg, which is an Army Special Operations Command where they train Green Berets and Army Rangers and all the things you think about when you think about the Army and the military. So he'll be heading down there for a speech later today. He'll be going down with Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth for that speech, and this comes ahead of that parade that we're expecting here in Washington, D.C. this weekend to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the military. We know this parade will feature many tanks, many soldiers parading down the streets of Washington. Also will be impacting flights in and out of DCA as they'll be having overhead flights of bombers and such coming through Washington. So that's what we can expect today out of DC.
All right, Olivia Rinaldi, live from the White House. We appreciate talking to you. Thank you so much. Wave at those squirrels that keep jumping behind you. We appreciate it.